Welcome back to Outside Views, and bro, we need to talk. And today we're diving into a topic that frankly leaves me deeply conflicted. The supposed more positive than ever outlook for German-British trade since Brexit. The narrative is shifting, and while the recent survey data suggests a remarkable wave of optimism among German businesses regarding the UK market, I cannot look at these numbers without a massive dose of cynicism and a heavy heart. Yes, the headline is overwhelmingly positive. 85% of German companies expect improved relations with the UK, and 72% anticipate rising revenues by 2030. This sounds like a triumphant comeback, a success story for the Global Britain project, but when you peel back the layers of this KPMG and British Chamber of Commerce in Germany report, you realize this optimism is largely built on geopolitical fear and a depressing calculation of necessary partnerships, not a genuine reversal of the damage done. I believe this optimism is not a sign that Brexit was successful, of course, but a painful admission that the world is now too dangerous for major European powers to remain estranged, and businesses are simply adapting to a worse reality. The biggest catalyst for this trend reversal, as the report calls it, is not the blossoming of free trade, but geopolitical tension. The survey explicitly points to the protectionist and unpredictable course of the USA and acute security threats in Europe and worldwide as the primary drivers forcing Germany and the UK back together. This is not a romantic reunion, it's an alliance born of necessity and survival. The UK-EU Security and Defence Pact, sealed in May 2025, and the German-UK Friendship Treaty, signed in July 2025, are what the business world is reacting to. And these agreements are political signals that Germany and the UK are being pushed into a coalition of the willing by external threats, and that finally gives businesses a baseline of trust and reliability they desperately lacked after the chaos of the first Brexit years. The sheer fact that 43% of companies now see security and defense as a new key area for cooperation, that's a massive 17 percentage point jump, tells you all you need to know. The market is being driven by tanks and tech, not tulips and tea. It's an unromantic realism, and while cooperation on security is undeniable vital, using a global crisis to mask the disastrous economic consequences of a political choice is a bitter pill to swallow. We must, however, confront the hard data that acts as a monumental warning against any excessive euphoria. For all the talk of optimism, the trade numbers remain a chilling indictment of Brexit. Since the 2016 referendum, the volume of trade between Germany and the UK has shrunk by roughly one-third, tumbling from 38 million tons to a mere 25 million tons in 2024. And let that sink in. One-third of trade gone. And what about the supposed rise in German exports to the UK, which went from 65 billion euros in 2021 to 80.3 billion in 2024? Well, the report quickly reveals the ugly truth. This increase is largely artificial, driven by a surge in higher gold sales via the London Gold Exchange. And when you adjust for this gold effect, the exports have essentially stagnated at around 73 billion euros. And this means the supposed trade recovery is, to a significant extent, an illusion created by financial transactions and not the sustained, meaningful flow of goods and services that truly drives economic prosperity. We are looking at stagnation and not success, papered over by gold. So if trade volume is down and exports are stagnant, where does the sustainable optimism come from? It comes from adaptation and acceptance of a worse normal, which is, in my view, a deeply depressing conclusion. Companies are not celebrating the benefits of Brexit, they are settling into the new reality and looking for any possible silver lining. 30% of companies now see opportunities in the less restrictive regulation in the UK compared to the EU. And this isn't a pro-UK vote, it's a desperate plea for less bureaucracy, a demand mirrored by the 66% of German companies who want their own government to enforce consistent bureaucracy reduction. Businesses are simply attracted to the easiest place to operate regardless of the political cost. The report notes that 25% of German companies see the UK's new trade deals, particularly with India and the USA, as a relevant growth driver. And this is a massive leap from 8% last year, showing that the UK's ability to strike independent deals free from EU consensus is finally, at least at some place, being viewed as an advantage, even if it doesn't bring the turnout that they always wanted to repair any Brexit damage. But for these firms, the UK is now a strategic launch pad to other markets, but the cost of leaving the EU to gain these marginal benefits remains astronomical. Crucially, the day-to-day burden of Brexit hasn't vanished, it has simply changed. The new import control system is less of a headache, but the electronic travel authorization introduced in 2025 is now a significant headache for 32% of companies. And new immigration rules affect 23%. And this shows the border is still a major friction point, and businesses are simply finding the path of least resistance around the new bureaucratic obstacles. The biggest sign of adaptation is the surge in planned investments. 31% of German companies plan to invest over 5 million euros in the UK by 2030, with 8% planning investments over 100 million euros. And this is a clear vote of confidence in the UK's long-term market potential, a signal that after years of uncertainty, companies feel they can finally commit serious capital. And the focus is on transforming sectors like advanced manufacturing, clean energy and defense, where the UK's less restrictive environment and research capabilities are a genuine draw. And this shift in investment is the market adapting to the new reality, but it comes with a major caveat. 41% of companies are still holding off on any investments. And yeah, they are really cautious here. Because in the current financial year, they don't want to do anything. And the recovery is partial, cautious, and far from universal. The key takeaway for me is not that British-German trade is more positive, but that politicians on both sides have a clear mandate to do better. But Germany cannot do much about trade here. That's the business of the EU. The businesses surveyed are practically begging for political action. A majority, 60%, want the UK government to seek improved trade relations with the EU, and 55% want the German government to use the upcoming 2026 review of the EU-UK trade agreement to secure substantial improvements and relief. As Michael Schmidt, the president of the British Chamber of Commerce in Germany, says, the geopolitical handshake must now be followed by an economic one. The new strong alliances in security and defense, like the joint work on deep precision strike capabilities and the strengthening of the eastern flank through land strategic partnerships, must serve as a catalyst for economic rapprochement. We have seen that when faced with a common enemy, the two nations can set aside their differences. And it's time for the economic architects to follow the lead of the defense planners. The upcoming 2026 review is a crucial, unmissable opportunity to find solutions, but it will not merely be replaced by a completely new deal. That will not happen. The EU will not renegotiate the whole thing. But the discussions between the EU and the British have to continue about getting the British closer to the EU again. And it will not be that they just get some gifts on any kind of economy. But in my strong personal view, the improved outlook isn't a post-Brexit boom. It's just a desperate call for a better Brexit, a demand from the market that politicians stop letting a political decision damage a fundamental necessary partnership. The long-term optimism is a hopeful prediction of what could be if the remaining friction is removed, and not a celebration of what currently is. This is not global Britain, but a major strategic partner that we are being forced to work with, despite the continued economic self-harm. But I'm really looking forward to your opinion here. Is this optimism genuine or just companies making the best of a bad situation? And if you want to see another video right now, the next one is right here in the end screen. I'll see you there. I'll be back.